I am Jim Collison and live from our virtual studios around the world. This is Gallup's Call to Coach, recorded on April 22nd, 2021. Call to Coach is a resource for those who want to help others discover and use their strengths. We have Gallup experts and independent strengths coaches share tactics, insights, and strategies to help coaches maximize the talent of individuals, teams, and organizations around the world. And today, that's going to be really, really important. If you're listening live, love to have you join us in our chat room. There's a link on the live page right above me that takes you to YouTube. Sign into your Google account, and we'd love to have you in the chat room there. If you have questions after the fact, and many of you have been sending these, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to subscribe on any podcast platform and find us on any social media by searching CliftonStrengths. Dr. Jaclynn Robinson is our host today. She works as a learning and development consultant at Gallup. And Jaclynn, it's always a great day when I get to spend it with you. Welcome back to Call to Coach.
Thank you, sir. I know this is one of my, if not my favorite time of the week, is just being able to connect on here for an hour with you and the community.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about connecting today, right? I mean, that's the kind of theme of today.
Yes.
Big interview last week when we had Jane, our COO, on that. Any takeaways from that as we just kind of think about looking back before we look forward? Anything, any takeaways from that you pulled out of it?
Yes, I'd say, and for anyone that hasn't watched it yet, I highly recommend it. It's really level setting as we go through this series this quarter on teams, where she really kicks it off just talking about purpose and the value of having a purpose within an organization, how you create that strengths-based culture and really have that as a foundation. So when change happens, like we've gone through in the past year, you're already pretty stable and set up for success. And then you can deliver hope to help people get through. So that was such a wonderful session to kick off with. And I'm glad that now we are moving from purpose into getting even more tactical. At that local level, what can we do to help teams, especially right now when they're looking for belongingness, they're looking to reassess their values as a team, maybe their goals, the partnerships they have. And so that's what today is all about, is really thinking about bringing the team together cohesively.
We're going to spend a little bit of time with some resources, both what's available in coaching kits, what's available in our activity guide, team activity guide that's out there and is available. But we'd also like to hear from you. So as we're going through this time together, we're going to, Jaclynn and I are going to work through these. We'd like to hear some team activities in the chat room that works for you. And I know, sometimes they're big and complicated, but to try and boil that down to a 10-second elevator pitch. What are you doing that's working on teams? And we'd love to have you share that on our chat room, and we'll kind of talk about that as we get towards the end of the program. But Jaclynn, let's dive right in, as we have kind of 10 connection activities when we think about pulling people together. You've thought this through both from an in-person and a virtual perspective, and so we'll kind of work through that as well. We know that both situations are happening. We've kind of moved back into, or we're moving back into, a more hybrid workplace. And so let's start with number one.
Number one. So it's the At Your Best activity. And if you all have the team activities guide, it is going to be on page 9. So I really like this activity because it's a great way to reset and recalibrate as we come out of this recovery phase. And the idea behind it is first just self-reflection. So if you've got the team together on site or virtually, they can do this activity. And that's what I appreciate about it. So what they end up doing is talking about a time when they're at their best. They're talking about a time when they feel a lot of joy. They're talking about a time when they worked on the best project ever. And once they have that opportunity to really just sit and reflect, they share that out with the team. And coming through this past year, people might be working differently. So what I love about that activity is it's giving people the opportunity to think about, what am I doing now? What have I been doing in the past year? And has that actually changed from, the pre-COVID time when I was on site and my work looked a little bit different? And that's also giving all the partners around them some insight into, their projects, what's bringing them joy, and when they're at their best, so that they can be those accountability partners.
If you're an organization that's Q12 that's using it,
Yeah.
this is also a great one to pair with that Q1. Do I get the opportunity, or I'm sorry, Q3? Do I get the opportunity to do what I do best every day? And I was
Yes.
thinking of Q1, like, do I really understand what's expected of me in this? And
Hmm.
I think as we think through the pandemic, those expectations may have changed. The
Yeah.
organization expectations might have changed. Your own expectations may have changed. And I think it's so a great opportunity. Don't get drugged down in the handout or the
Hmm.
materials on this one. It can be just a great question to ask. Let them formulate it and then let them come back, right? And do that.
Absolutely.
Jaclyn, when you're giving advice to coaches as far as facilitating something like this, and you're thinking about a team session, maybe there's
Mhm.
10 or so, what's the best if you think about best practice, facilitation in this, pulling it, how do you really pull that out of people? How do we bring that back, so folks can be
Yeah.
open and have that conversation?
Good question. I think if you're working virtually, people appreciate having 5 minutes just to have their cameras off to go through this process.
Mm.
And then typically, if their cameras are off, we would say, okay, whenever you're done, please turn your cameras back on. That way we know that we can move on and I can send you into breakout rooms. And that breakout room piece, even if it's 10 people, if you have 3 to a breakout room or, 4 or 5 to a breakout room, giving them that opportunity in smaller groups to debrief with one another. I appreciate that because that could bring out the shy folks that you might have that are little more leery or hesitant to share in that gallery view, but they are appreciative of being able to share in that smaller setting. And then I think most importantly is also having a team lead if you are in breakouts to say, okay, who's going to be the team leader that's going to come back and share some of the insights with everyone else. And then, of course, you can open up the floor for other folks to share. But if you've got a team leader, then you can guarantee you're hearing from each of the breakout rooms. So virtually, I think that's a really effective way to lead this session. But then if you're on site too, you could put them in, tables. I know some are fully vaccinated at this point, so you might not be as socially distanced, but putting people in table groups and first having, again, 5 minutes to self-reflect, a few minutes to talk as a team, and then open it up to the room.
You can even make it a power of two exercise and bring them
Yeah.
back in pairs, move them around in what we call speed dating, which is so having those conversations, then move, so you get 2 minutes on one side, 2 minutes on the other, then move. So I
Yeah.
love this because you can really facilitate this an infinite number of ways, kind of
Hmm.
based on what you need or what the organization needs or what that team needs. If you know some of those needs, let's so there's let's go to number two because that's kind of an
Hmm.
add-on to this one.
Yes. So on page 19 in the activities guide, if you have it, it's an expectations activity. So this is now to say, okay, you know what you do best, what brings you joy. Let's think about what you're doing in your role currently. What are those 5 expectations that you have in your role, and how do you see your talent themes connect back to that? So this could actually work 2 ways. To one degree, it helps people identify the talents they're using in the role, and maybe they're using different talents. Jim, that was something that even you had spoken about, and moving from on-site to this virtual world was you might be in the same role, but your talents are being used differently. So I think it's great at highlighting that. And then going back to Q12, Q1, I know it's expected of me at work for anyone using the engagement survey. It also can be used to identify if you're on the same page and aligned with expectations for you and your manager. So writing those out, connecting it back to the themes, and then having a discussion with your manager to make sure you're on the same page. So kind of
We
2 ways
do.
that can work.
Yeah, no, I love it. We do get that question a lot on these Q12 feedback sessions that we do. Like, what do you do? And sometimes, that you're getting the groups together and you're just talking through it. And there's some great opportunities to do some of these activities to kind of pull some of these out. We know in the hierarchy of Q12 that the higher the question, I think, the more important they become. Those top three
Hmm.
of know what's expected of me, and do I have materials and equipment, and am I in the right role based on my strengths? Do I get the opportunity to use my strengths every day? Are super important. And so focusing on those 3 items with just these 2 exercises that are right here is
Yes.
just gold. Like, this is blocking and tackling, coaches. This is
Mhm.
at a very, I think sometimes we think, Jaclyn, you probably see this a lot. We try to get it too complicated as far as what
Yes.
we're trying to do, right? We try to overcomplicate the exercise, and it really sometimes keeping it simple is best, don't you think?
It is. Yes.
Let's move on to number 3.
Number 3. So I stole this from one of my colleagues who had us actually go through this activity on our team. It's similar to the best of me for those of you that know the best of me. So I will run through what those statements are. It isn't in the team activities guide. It's just a best practice that I stole. So it is, I get the best of me when, I get the worst of me when. Habits that build me up are, habits that break me down are. So, as an individual, you are completing those 4 statements. And for anyone that has used a version of the best of me, you can tell that this is a little bit different because you're looking inward and then you're sharing that out with the team. I love this because the team can hold you accountable. If they're hearing when you get the best of yourself and habits that build you up, if you're not in that zone, then they can be there as accountability partners to make sure that you are building in those habits into your day to day. I think we need that more now more than ever with well-being being so relevant and people feeling like their well-being tank is starting to um, go down. They need some more gas and fuel in that well-being tank. So this is a way to say, hey, a habit that builds you up is putting some time in your calendar, being more structured, going on a walk, working out. Are you getting that in?
I love that you're talking about maybe modifying an existing thought that we had, modify that. We talked a little bit about values and purpose last week.
Hmm.
And organizationally, the organization may hold to some values that are important to bring up, and you can modify that to fit in this best of me idea, right? And so
Yes.
you can bring those values in and make 2 of those items, whatever. There's no magic number there. And 4 is not
Mm,
a magic number. It's just what
that's right.
just what we pick, right? You can
Yes.
add as many or as few as you want. I think I think the idea of starting with success in mind, so starting
Hmm.
this kind of best of me exercise by saying, think about a time when you were the most successful. What are you most proud of? What was some recognition? Because I think sometimes people struggle with that. Like, what's
Yes.
the most meaningful recognition you've ever had? And then tell us about that. Sometimes I think in groups, getting that conversation going, and it's not easy in all cultures, by the way. There's some cultures that don't honor people talking about their successes openly, and so you've got to kind of taper that, right, with who you're
Hmm.
working with. But I think getting that flowing and then going into a best of me gets the juices, right, gets the creative brain stuff moving so that you can get to these questions. Do you think so?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a great point.
let's
Great
uh
point.
let's look at number 4.
Number 4. So this is with whom do you partner activity, and this is going to be on page 31. So speaking of partners, this is a way where you can start to identify and celebrate the partners that you work with. So this is an activity where you have people selecting 4 of the partners that they work with daily, and they're thinking about the the contributions that that person makes to them. What are the characteristics and the value that this individual brings to our partnership? What I like about this, and for coaches, you might have used these questions or tactics before too, but if someone appreciates a partnership, oftentimes I'll get into the weeds to say, what are the characteristics that makes that such an effective partnership for you? And then if you've got a manager, the manager can then start to identify who are some other people that are in their vicinity that I can pair them with and partner them up with in the future so that I can continue to build bridges and connections. At this point in time, you've got the individual actually thinking about this for themselves. So, who are the 4 partners that I work with the most regularly? What are those values and characteristics? And okay, now I can think about other people. I can keep my eyes and ears open for other people in the workplace that might be valuable partners that are meeting that same level of criteria, so to speak.
We have a board of directors activity where we sit down. Could you pair these two together and get
That's a
it's
good
kind of
one.
start thinking
Yes.
like, let's start with this. Who do I partner with? And then think strategically, who do I need to add to my board of directors?
That's a
Right?
good idea.
Could you do that? Yeah. See how that
Talent and
works?
action, Jim. Ideation.
No, it is high
This
ideation.
is this is a powerful partnership.
Well, I mean, in the context of what you and I do too, as well, I think it's important to see examples of that happen. And you bring, like a lot of the hosts that I have on here, you really bring the fundamental for me. You
Mhm.
bring the fundamental building blocks of what we need to communicate to the community and do it in a way that is proven and tested. Like I'm not in the field, so I can't. I have to hear it from you guys. And so that's the value as I think about our partnership, you and me. And I'm not just making this up as an example, by the way. I mean,
Mhm.
this is all the way I feel. And so it gives me the ability. It makes me feel comfortable knowing I can come to this time together, and I never have to worry about the content because I know you're going to deliver great quality content every single time, Jaclyn. We've been doing this now for 4 months, and every single one has been great. So thanks for your partnership
Thank you,
in this.
friend.
It's been super valuable to me on that. That's how it works, coaches, by the way.
This is
That's how it works.
You're the
So
best.
super cool. Let's look speaking of that, and I just sprinkled a little recognition for you in that, but let's look at number 5.
Yes. So number 5 is what I like to call the celebration station. So we've talked about partnerships. This can come right after coaches and folks in the room. So we've talked about the characteristics that make these 4 people great partners. Has this individual recognized them? So one best practice that I heard from a client in Los Angeles was she created a celebration station in order to create a deeper and richer culture of recognition. And this was when everybody was on site, but a lot of organizations still are on site, and this could work. She had a space, a dedicated space with greeting cards, markers, stickers, all of these different creative elements where someone could draft a greeting card and send someone a word of appreciation and drop that on their desk. So just a word of thanks. And if you think about some of the stores, they have those dollar bins and you can get those really pretty blank greeting cards that can be used. But it was a crafty and creative way to get people excited to recognize one another. Now, what I've seen other people do in this interim of working from home is they'll ship kits to, team members to say, hey, here's it's already stamped with postage. Send a note of thanks to those that you work most closely with, that you want to recognize. So that's one way that you can fill the bucket, as Robin said. Exactly, it's filling your bucket with that recognition. So I love this idea. She called it, the person on site, the client I worked with called it Celebration Station. I think there's all kinds of ways we can recognize one another. So it's celebrating our partners for what they bring to the table.
Yeah, and I think really looking at the organization and saying, how can we slipstream recognition so it happens nearly automatically?
Mm-hmm.
Those stations, we had those set up at Gallup for a while where there were just buckets of drops,
Yes.
pens, like you could do it.
Yes.
We removed the barrier, which is I can't find a drop, right?
Yes. Here's
Where
your markers. Here's your drops. And I love that in the chat we're hearing that too. Yeah, you could use the drops.
Yeah, no,
Definitely,
it's a
Jennifer.
great way. And I've had folks, we sold those for the longest time. You can make those. I always encourage
Mm-hmm.
organizations to make their own branded version of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, get cultural with it. Get in the org and say what are some values that work in the org, and then let's make our own. We do that. That's unique to Gallup because we have that book, How Full Is Your Bucket? Which if
Mm-hmm.
you haven't read that, by the way, just buy it and read it. It's such a great book on recognition. And I think recognition can completely change an organization. I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
if you could only do one thing, start having people recognize meaningful recognition, and it totally changes things. Many of
Agreed.
the listeners know Lindsay Spain, who Lindsay comes on and does Called to Coach interviews with some of her clients. And Lindsay is by far one of the best recognition people I have ever met. It's meaningful, it's significant. She knows exactly. I mean, she really thinks it through. So when I get recognition from Lindsay, like I know it's a big deal. And so there are folks in the organization like that. You probably see this too, Jaclyn, where
Yes.
they're just naturally good at it. Let's get them on a committee. Let's get them in a group. Let's get them helping others, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, and I think this ties right into it as well. Let's look at number 6.
Yes. The power of two. So this is something that we do at Gallup as well. And one thing that I would recommend is quarterly, even at that local level with intact teams, having them nominate powerful partners. Who's the power of two that have gone above and beyond, have achieved goals, have brought in new business, have kept the team together. But nominating a power of two, I think the value in that comes from, to your point, it feels meaningful and authentic because this is your team nominating you and saying, we appreciate the value that you bring. We recognize you. And then doing it quarterly. It's a big event, but it's not something where it would just be over time you go, oh, okay, we're doing this all the time. It's not meaningful. I think doing it quarterly is that happy window of time where people feel like it's still a pretty big deal. And some people do that at the end of the year too for end of year awards. But
I
what
think
else
in
would you
TR
say?
we've done that. We've done it twice a year to recognize us. So that
Hmm.
frequency, I love that you can kind of customize that frequency. Of course, Power of Two is from a book that we put out 10 years or so ago. But with that idea of just like you said, these powerful partnerships. One of the great things about my job is I've gotten that a couple times with partners that I have done this on. Ironically, Micah and I have never gotten a Power of Two award.
We need to
So
make that happen.
I don't know how that.
I don't know how that happened.
But it is one of those things. I love the fact that, especially when it comes from peer recognition,
Hmm.
and it's not about nominating another person who's your partner. It's looking for the partnerships in the org that you're seeing that have an enormous amount of value. And
Yeah.
so it really is that meaningful. Again, this whole, I think, magic around recognition is around meaningful, and
Hmm.
yeah, meaningful recognition, not just saying it to say it. This is the drawback too, and I want you to talk about this for just a second. It can become kind of programmatic, right? It can become kind of too automatic. Have you seen that where it's
Yes.
maybe forced into the system?
Yes. And then people start to retract because it doesn't feel as meaningful anymore. So I think it
Mhm.
really does have to have that natural flow. And if you're celebrating one another regularly, people find value in continuing that tradition of having the power of two awards. But if it feels like you're being pushed into it and that recognition isn't a strong suit of the team at the moment, then it tends to backfire.
Yeah, yeah. It can just be
Yeah.
fake and almost be worse
Mhm.
than no recognition.
Mhm.
That's like one of those things we on a community call we talked about last night. A manager who doesn't give any feedback is actually can be worse than when they
Yes.
give negative feedback,
Yes.
right? And so I think forced recognition could be worse than no recognition at all in this case. And
Mhm.
so I think be careful there. Let's look at number
Agree.
7.
Number 7, paired up. So paired up on page 41 in the activity guide. What I like about this one is it helps you start thinking about how you belong with other people, the value that you bring to other people. So this is one of those activities where you are pairing up people into partners of two. You can do this on site, you can do this virtually in breakout rooms. But before you get started, you could use theme insight cards, discovery cards. If people know their talent themes really well, they could just share out what those two themes are that they want to use. But the idea behind it is that each individual is going to choose two of their 5 themes that they use most frequently with partners. And then they will share out what those two themes are with that partner. The partner is then going to write basically what value that person brings as they think about those two themes, how they've contributed, um, what um, what are some other ones that I'm thinking of here? How they maximize their effectiveness.
Mhm.
So, Jim, hey, you're my partner. You maximize my effectiveness XYZ in
Right.
XYZ way. So I love that activity. And then they share out with one another. And then you can debrief as a room too to share the insights.
Yeah, I love that idea of debriefing back to the room so that
Hmm.
it others get to hear those pieces. We spent a lot of time in season 2 of Theme Thursday talking about these theme dynamics that can add in, and we hear a lot of time, hey, we've done a standard debrief. They know their strengths. They might even be well versed in them, and then I think this can be the next level of it. I think these
Yeah.
of really beginning to talk through them and not just naming them anymore, but really the claiming and then getting to the aiming part of now what are
Hmm.
we going to do with this now that we know this? What are we going to do with this? How are we going to pair these to enhance, to
Yes.
accelerate, to produce, right, from that. So
Hmm.
that is great. I love your number 8 idea, by the way. So I want to get right to that. Let's talk about number 8.
Yes. Number 8 is what I like to call Well-Being Wednesday. Um, I can't take the claim for that title. I think a lot of people are using it right now. But Wellbeing Wednesday is what I've seen some clients start to do. And what they're focusing on is one well-being act, element, action, activity a week that brings the team together. So what I've seen some clients do is they'll, do yoga with one another. Other clients have done tennis as a fun, socially distanced activity. Some are walking together. But it can be anything. It's not just limited to physical well-being. This could be financial well-being, social well-being, community well-being. Maybe they're doing something and giving back to the community. But this is one of those activities where the team comes together and decides what they want to do as a unit, and then they go out there and they do that one day a week. Well-Being Wednesday just has a nice rhyme to it,
Yeah.
kind of, well, rhyme, name to it, flow
Yeah.
to it. So
Yeah.
people
I
like
love
to do it on Wednesday.
Well, and you get these, it's easy to remember, there's other
Hmm.
things we've, a couple months ago and well, during the leadership series, I would say, hey, it's top 5 Friday. Like that kind
Yeah,
of rolls off,
it does.
what are you
Yeah.
doing? Theme Thursday started that way. Motivation Monday, right? And so I think there's some great opportunities with teams to have these call outs. I call them Ebenezer's, these these kind of signposts, whether they're virtual or we have a
Yes.
sign, we actually have a sign in in the office or what have you, that kind of remind us like, yeah, oh yeah, it is Well-Being Wednesday. Okay, I
Hmm.
can't wait for this. Like, what are we going to do to what's on the docket for Well-Being Wednesday? So I
Yes.
think some great opportunities to coach some organizations and coming up with these, and you don't have to do every day. Doesn't
Hmm.
have to be something new every day. Um, this ties in nicely to number 9, and this is new to me. I haven't seen this one before, so
Yes.
let's talk about number 9.
Number 9, I'm coining the evening wind down after work.
Different
So
than a happy hour, by the
it
way.
is.
Different,
It's
yes.
the new happy hour. So what some organizations are doing, some intact teams that I've connected with, is at the end of a day, the team will get together and share out successes and share out something that was just difficult. And what that does is it helps unpack both the beauty of the day, but also something that might have weighed heavily on their shoulders. So by the time they go home, or if you're already home, you turn off and you go into that family mode. You feel like you're not on an island by yourself. You have a team that feels and understands what you might be going through, or that's there to console you at least. Um, and you're also celebrating the magic of the day. So you have that memory that you're ending on as well, something more positive. But then you can turn off and really get into family mode. And that's been very beneficial for a number of teams. There's one organization in particular where quite a few of these intact teams do that at the local level, and the frequency differs. For some, if they did it every single day, they would feel like it's just too much. Some love doing it the last 5 minutes of the day. They just quickly go through it before they leave the office. And these are on-site folks, but quite easy to do virtually as well, especially if you're doing it one time a week, just to say, hey, let's have, or at the end of a team meeting, a weekly team meeting as a recap to say, all right, what's going well and what's on your mind.
Yeah, I love sometimes we do these stand-ups, in the morning, first thing in the morning. and then the day runs away. And I love this
Yeah.
idea of moving that stand up with an opportunity for, and maybe not just checking in or a progress report, but maybe a little deeper than that. And because you're not
Mhm.
doing it every day, it can be a little more open, a little more vulnerable, maybe in that. And then I love that idea of really encouraging to turn off after this. Like, let's do
Yes.
that for one day a week. We're going to do this, and let's just close it down. This probably ties into your well-being
Yes.
Wednesday, right? In some way,
Yes.
let's close that thing down, because I think some of the we used to do happy hours at Gallup where we'd get together at like 4 or 4:30, and down in the atrium. Many of the coaches listening have been in the atrium because of the summit,
Mhm.
and it was just like just kind of wrap up the day. It was kind of a celebration, but it was just a great opportunity to get together. And I'd always work hard not to work after that, like
Yes.
not to go back to my desk.
Yes.
Right, and I just think it's a great opportunity, to do that. We've got number 10, and these are the 10 we're gonna wrap, or that we're gonna wrap with this one, but we want some, and you're doing this already, but we want some ideas or
Oh,
some
send me
things you've
through.
heard in the chat room. We'll cover those here in a second, but Jaclyn, what do we have for number 10?
Number 10, we are going back to the team activities guide. So this is what we would call the team testimonial. Very last page of the activities guide. It's page 74. What I like about this one, if we think about where we've come in these last 9 activities that we've shared, we reflected on how our work has changed, our expectations might have changed, the value we're bringing to the table, habits that build us and break us down. We've celebrated partnerships with one another. We've recognized one another for it. We focused on our well-being. And now we're really closing to say, okay, we're coming out of recovery. We're going into, summer, fall 2021. Let's reset and identify our mission, our values, our belief system. So, with this activity, you've got the group together and you're just taking a moment to say, where are we heading in the new year? New year, kind of summer, fall 2021. As a team, what do we believe? As a team, what do we value? And as a team, what will we always do? And then now you've got your team testimonial. And that really might have changed, especially over this past year. I know there's just been a lot on people's minds, both within an organization, but outside in society as well, and with the economy. So I love this idea of bringing it back together to see what has changed. And now we've got this vision moving forward.
Yeah, I love the fact, like, look, team size may have changed, individuals may have changed in
Yes.
this, right? We
Values might have changed
we
as
may
you
be
were
smaller.
connecting
Yeah,
with earlier.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of. And this may be a one time, or this could be a quarterly event where you just bring that team back around together to kind of purposefully look at values, look at our purpose. What are we doing? That
Mhm.
may be a time to continue to think through the team purpose statement, and what are we doing as a
Yes.
team? How do we function in that way? You know, Jaclyn, Lisa asked a question, or I think a really good question. I'll throw it up here. She says, as we think about going back to recognition, and really any of these can
Mhm.
fall into this, right? How do you make sure
Yes.
it doesn't become like a popularity contest, right? That the biggest personalities are always celebrated rather than people who have hidden successes. What would you say to that question?
Oh, that's a good one. Yes. Um, I look for the people on the team that might highlight that. Sometimes I think about the includers who see the folks that are doing such great work, but they're not necessarily seen or heard or valued in the way those larger personalities are. So, is there someone on the team that identifies those folks and highlights it, brings it up in a team meeting, and really celebrates the success so that it becomes front and center again? That's one of the first things that comes to mind for me is um, coming from the team member level to say, okay, who do I have around me that can really highlight the value of some of these other folks? Who's the other person maybe that's a cheerleader or can get people really excited about this work that other folks are doing? And can I nudge them to just share out what they've been visibly seeing in other folks at the
Uh,
next team meeting, for example, where it's like, oh, then they're even being recognized for being
yeah.
that person that can motivate, inspire, bring value to the team, highlight who is doing what and the great work involved.
Sometimes power of two helps with this because then now we're adding in, oftentimes dynamic teams are maybe comprised of a more upfront and a more behind the scenes, and so now you're bringing in the behind the scenes person as part of that
Mhm.
power of two. I think it's a manager's responsibility to watch for this,
Mhm.
to because the manager should know, in all cases, the manager should know the contributions of everyone on the team. And then I think it's also the manager's responsibility to lead by example in this. And
Mhm.
and I like to use that term prime the pump, to get it going. The manager should be the one setting the pace for this and then pull back and let the team do it. But sometimes teams giving recognition is a trust exercise, right? In a lot of ways. Like I'm going to give you, Jaclynn, recognition, and I'm going to hope I'm doing the right thing
Yes.
in doing it, right? It's not always a slam dunk. It's not, and it's hard for some people to give recognition. They're just not naturally good at it. And so I mean, I've learned at Gallup, we have some amazing people who give recognition. I mentioned Lindsay, Sarah Vanderhelm in our, Sarah, and
Mhm.
Sarah is amazing at it, right? So looking to them to learn how to do that has been something I've done. It just doesn't come naturally, right? Sometimes you need to learn it. Katie had mentioned in the chat as well, of using Google Kudo boards to make virtual name boards and let everyone access the link, write down the
Oh,
affirmations on each person's
love.
board, right? This is a great way to do it virtually. Can save them as a PDF and share them
Yes.
back. Trello, you could do the same thing. You could create a team Trello board where instead of projects, you have people and folks can go in
Yes.
and add recognition under those people on a Trello board. Like, no one ever thinks of using Trello for people recognition, but
I
you could do it
love
that.
these ideas.
Yeah, what else? Anything come to mind as you're thinking kind of through the technology?
Besides, I wanna steal all of these and use in the future. Um, Gosh, I love that. I think you all are spot on with where you're going there. One activity actually that comes to mind, technology based, is in breakout rooms. It goes back to your talent theme speed dating, which is to have each person have 1 minute where people just feed them with recognition. This is what you bring to the team. These are words that we would use to describe you and the value that you bring to the team. And then that minute's up, and you move on to the next person. So if you've got
Yeah.
a breakout room of 5 people, you just had 4 folks that filled your bucket in that speed round. And sometimes that's a really nice icebreaker before getting into the work. People are really uplifted and motivated.
I've said this one before, but I've done it where it's somebody's birthday. We might be on a Zoom call and it's somebody's birthday, and you say
Yes.
3 words about that person. So what are the first 3 words when you think about that person that come to mind? And then you just go around and you just say 3 words.
Oh, that's nice.
Like that is, I mean, I've seen people
Yes.
cry over that. Like it's an amazing, it's just 3 words, right? All you're
Yes.
thinking through. So you don't have to, it doesn't have to be complicated,
Hmm.
and a lot of people, they're craving that. So
They
a great way
are.
of doing birthday recognition. Holly says one of my managers does water cooler Mondays. They all jump on Zoom and talk about their weekends, no work focus. And
How fun.
think that's
I
super
love the
important.
name too. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. No, just to have a
Yeah.
moment like, okay, guys, this is not, we did this. So with the recruiting group that I was a part of or early in the year, we had a Monday and Friday, 9 a.m. to 9:30, no expectations. This isn't a meeting. You don't have to be here. It's just a time to come and
Oh,
either tell us
yes.
what you're going to do or what you did over the weekend. And it was just kind of open for whoever wanted to do that, and it had its time. It worked for a while. The gal who ran it left the organization, and it kind of dipped off because you kind of need somebody to do that, right? And then
Hmm.
focus changed a little bit, and so that became the team changed, like the chemistry of the team changed, and it moved in a different direction. It would be an equal mistake to try to continue to force that without the personalities there to kind of sustain it
Yes.
going forward,
Then you have
you
to
know?
get creative and come up with something new.
Lisa likes Jamboard. We were talking a little bit about Trello. but you could use a jam for board for that. Lisa also says, Jim mentioned the question, what was the most meaningful recognition you've ever received? Can be a
Yeah.
clue to help people know that they're recognizing others in the right way. I've seen teams, you probably have too, where there's a person who keeps a team profile. Like the
Hmm.
when you join a team, there's some questions they ask: favorite color, birthday, how do you like to be
Yes.
recognized, right? And then that can be used by other people to be like, oh, I want to recognize so and so. You can kind of look at their profile. By the way, not forced. I didn't want to fill out a profile, and they said that's fine. That's okay. So it wasn't kind of forced. Have you seen other team tools like that teams use that kind of help spur that connectivity on?
I like that one. I'd say, to your point, that's what I've seen some managers use to recognize people when it comes to their birthday or certain holidays where they want to gift them. I like the idea and play on having team members also see what that team profile looks like. So if they want to recognize someone in a meaningful and authentic way, they know what their favorite candy is, or they know what their favorite color is, or what their favorite hobbies and interests are, and they can incorporate that. I have seen people do that with, I would say, gift cards. So less about using a team profile sheet, but identifying what are the hobbies and interests of each of the individuals. I might be gift carding everybody at the end of the year, but I want to make sure the gift card is specific and individualized to what that person actually enjoys. If they like fishing, it's going to be a Bass Pro gift card versus someone that loves sports, where I might give them, a Nike gift card, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think sometimes the pressure is on the people, like, we're supposed to just know these things,
Hmm.
and I don't. Like, I don't
And
just
it's
know
fine
these
to
things.
ask,
Yeah,
right?
I don't. It's super helpful to me to have, like, a team database of, like, what do they like? What would be appropriate? And it'd be great if I could remember that, but those aren't in my themes, those remembering those things. And there are people who can do that, and great,
Hmm.
great for them. I can't. And so it's helpful to have some of those things. As when I was a
Yeah.
manager, and I'd actually do this in the Four Keys guide, which isn't available anymore, but it was, I would write down, there's some great questions in there, and I'd actually write that down and hold the recognition question
Hmm.
and kind of hold on to it. So when I was in a spot where, like, I needed to recognize them for something, I could pull that out, open it up, and
It's
take a look
brilliant.
at it. So yeah, super great. Jaclyn, any other thoughts as we kind of wrap this? Appreciate the suggestions that we got from the chat room and just some thoughts. But let me ask you this question: what's the best recognition you've ever received? Like, as you think about this, let's just
Mm,
practice this for a second. As you think
yeah.
about in your career and all the things you've done, and a shining moment that for you has made you the most proud, or you look to as the best recognition you've ever received,
Mm,
how would you answer that?
that's a good one. Well, one that automatically comes to mind is the internal recognition from those that I work most closely with.
Mm,
So something we used to have, but we don't anymore, was having our partners, um, you know, rate us basically to identify our on a scale of 1 to 5, how effective is this person at being a partner? And there's a number of different questions, but when you get handfuls of people that are responding to that survey, that internal customer service survey, so to speak, and you're seeing all the feedback, the positive feedback, and a high rating, you go, oh, okay. Especially as a relator, knowing that people find me as a valuable partner and someone that's genuine and really helpful to the work that we do, I would say that's been the most valuable. Where it's like,
mm.
oh, okay, I'm doing work. People appreciate it. They see me for who I want to be, which is quite genuine and authentic. So, hands down, that's probably it when it comes from those that I work with, and that
Yeah,
survey in particular,
yeah.
which we don't do anymore. But
No, we don't. Well, it wasn't working for us internally, and they were like, okay, we're not getting the value out of this that we once got. That same survey, when I first started at Gallup, I remember having a conversation with my manager. I had 7 raters
hmm.
in those days. I think it was kind of set up automatically, but you could add folks to it. Anyways, the more raters, the better. And I remember my manager saying, we need to work on getting you more, like more. In other words, I need you partnering more, right? And it's not always good, right? I mean, I think some people are surprised. I'm very open about times in my career when I've struggled.
Hmm.
I don't think a lot of people want to mention those, but I think those some really good things come out of that, and that
Yeah.
set me on a path to be like, okay, now Maximizer 3. I know what I need to do. I need more raters. And
Yes.
the very last administration of that kind of survey that we would do, I had 82 raters, which was the most in the company, and it was a
It's
perfect 5.
amazing.
And I was like, yes, like what a way to go out,
Mic
right?
drop.
You
Yeah.
just boom.
Yeah.
And but it drove me, right? And so I
Hmm.
think it's one of those things we have to be careful with some of those, but certainly along the way there was a lot of these a lot of the things we talked about. You know, the success that I had was not because I did anything different. It was because I partnered with teams and people to make them better. And when I figured
Hmm.
out that was my real role, was to make other people better, then all the pieces just came together, right? And so
Yeah.
using these techniques, a lot of the things we talked about today have been on my journey for this. And in coaches, I think you can take this and start a culture of this. When we think about creating a strengths-based culture, these are the blocking and tackling exercises that need to be done, and not just in an event,
Hmm.
but every day inside an organization. Jaclyn, why don't you wrap this up for us?
Yeah. Builds trust and community.
Yeah.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the best practices. I have even more in my back pocket that I'm going to pull from. We hope to continue seeing you in our series. We've got another series, another show coming up for you in just a couple of weeks, I believe. Time is flying. We're in a different time and space continuum.
It is really
So
sped up. Yeah.
stay tuned. There's more to come. And Jim, I'm going to throw it back over to you.
All right. With that, we'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available. We talked about that team's activity guide. You can purchase that now, both in its paper form and a digital form there at the store. So go to store.gallup.com. You can get access to a lot of the resources we were talking about inside Gallup Access now. So go to gallup.com/CliftonStrengths, sign in, go to our resources section, and start searching away. There's a lot of great resources that are available for you there. If you're interested in coaching, master coaching, or want to become a Gallup certified strengths coach, or have any questions about coaching, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. I just said coaching like 8 times in that sentence. Keep up, like Jaclyn said, keep up with all the webcasts, things that are coming up. We're posting those
Mhm.
here almost daily. Head over to gallup.eventbrite.com. We're excited to announce we announced our last keynote for the 2021 Gallup at Work Virtual Summit, and now everything's kind of locked in. We have this sweet virtual box. I don't know if you saw what's in there. Not only is the well-being book free, and by the way, we're shipping this around the world, which is kind of
This is so
crazy. Can't believe they're doing this.
exciting.
They're shipping this actual physical box to you. It'll have the new well-being book as well as this canteen. That's not what they call them anymore. Water bottle. There we go. It's a water bottle, and it keeps track of how much you drink. It's a smart water bottle. So it's also Gallup branded.
That's
Everybody's always
pretty
looking
neat.
for Gallup swag. So you have to register by May 15th. So get that done now and today. Head out to gallupatwork.com and get that done. You can find us on any social platform just by searching Clifton Strengths. And we want to thank you for joining us today. If you found, I don't say this as often as I used to, but if you found this helpful, and I think it was pretty helpful today, it was helpful to me, share it. Just send the link to your partners, to your teammates, to your friends, to your family, even. Send it to your
Mhm.
mom. She would love to see this. So I want to thank you for joining us today. We'll see you back here next week. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.